Ooh, passion, spiritual, inside, yeah, 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 for your life. It's the Pearl Hale Show.
Hello and welcome, greetings. We're chatting it up. Thank you so much for watching the Pearl Hale Show. We're talking about the journey to self-worth and self-fulfillment, and I have none other than my girl, Shannon Wright. She's a singer, actress, motivational speaker. She's about to do some great things. In movies and films. And we thank you so much for being with me tonight. I'm going to give you a big shout out. How's it going?
What's up, Pearl? Thanks for
What's
having me on again.
up?
What's up? Thanks for having me on again. Good to
It's
be here.
glad to have you. We're talking about a subject that all of us can relate to, and it is the journey to self worth and fulfillment. And Shannon, we're so glad to have you. We're super stoked. There's a lot of things, last week I spoke with Cheryl Baptiste. We was talking about alopecia and about how women image so many things come at us. And so we're going to talk about it. Your journey to self-worth and fulfillment. And I'm going to start off with a quote from my girl, Maya Angelou. You alone are enough. You have nothing to prove to anybody.
Mm.
Interesting quote. I love her. It gets me through the day. So let's talk about this. Why do so many people, Shannon, struggle with recognizing their value?
Mm. That's a great question, Pearl. Struggle being an operable word in there. It's true. A lot of people do struggle with their value. I know for me, before I struggled with value because sometimes my ear gates were open to just anyone, letting people say whatever they want to say about me, and sometimes valuing their opinion over my own or what I know to be true. And some of that was people pleasing or going along to get along, so to speak. But I think many people struggle with understanding their value because of where they get their information from, whether it's social media and the news. You think about what society says is valuable. You compare yourself to other people. So then sometimes you devalue yourself by valuing someone else's gifts over your own. And I think that takes a toll on people sometimes in terms of understanding you are valuable. You have a light. You have a purpose. You're amazing in and of yourself. I think for me, I had to understand that the word of God says that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, and that I'm the apple of God's eye. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are the apple of God's eye. That is valuable. And so I do think it's a culmination of things. It's just what I said. Society, how we measure up to other people, comparing ourselves. Sometimes the environment that we are in makes us feel devalued or diminished in some way because someone else may see our light before we see our light, and may say things to devalue us so that we're not aware of our light. And sometimes it's important for us to remember to just guard our own ear gates and get our value from our creator.
It's interesting that you said that. That's a excellent answer. And two, so many people, based on where you come from
Mhm.
and how you grew up. Um, People pleasing is a real thing.
It really
You know,
is.
I mean, I've been in ministry my whole life, and some of the things I tell people that happen is that you can become a prisoner to
Hmm.
what others think, based on society, based on your social circles,
Exactly.
based on your reputation. And so breaking these strongholds of not valuing yourself, not understanding that you need love,
Hmm.
you need care, you need support. And so many times, um, we put that in the hands sometimes of other people because we don't realize or sometimes recognize that God made you fearfully and wonderful. God makes us fearful and wonderful. And
Hmm.
a lot of times it's a journey because of where a person has been. And if you are around negative people,
Hmm.
or if you're around people who put you down, I've talked to people and they said some growing up, they were called names, they were never valued. And so that plays a huge part on self worth. I want to go to this slide, um, about self worth. And understanding self worth starts with self acceptance, Shannon.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, Embracing who you are without conditions,
Right.
recognizing that your worth is inherent, not earned through achievement. And I think a lot of times, um, we equate achievement with self worth.
Hmm.
So if I'm not at this salary, or if I'm not
Level.
at this level at a certain
Hmm.
age, or like my friend down the block, or such as quote unquote keeping up with the Joneses, then that limits your self worth. Or if I'm not driving a certain ride, as they would say, and all those things have nothing to do with your self worth and your
Exactly. When you talk about
acceptance.
self acceptance, a lot of times, well, we all want acceptance.
Yes,
So, wanting the acceptance of others sometimes doesn't allow us to come into understanding our own self value and self worth because we're trying to appease them. So the people pleasing is real, as you say. But what happens is someone who understands that you're a people pleaser, they have a certain box or a certain uh, uh, construct that you're supposed to remain in. And the moment you step outside of that, they use it against you. So it's so important for you to have the confidence to know who you are for your own self acceptance.
yes,
And then you don't have to, seek the acceptance of others. And I feel that that was one of the things that I had to come to a realization on. So I am a completely recovered people pleaser. I don't seek to please others. I seek to please the Lord, but I recognize that wanting that acceptance is innate, but knowing that God accepts us and appreciating what we bring to the table every day, it's very valuable in releasing yourself from pleasing others. So, yes, I
yes.
appreciate that.
Yeah, that's true. And inner compassion, sometimes replacing self criticism with kindness. Sometimes we just are so critical of
Hmm.
ourselves. Speaking to yourself the way you would speak to someone you deeply care about. Uh, a lot of times we can be overcritical.
Hmm.
Sometimes, if you have the personality of an overachiever, you might be more critical on yourself.
Or if you
Um,
grow up with a critical parent,
yes,
sometimes that filters into how we view ourselves because our parents were so critical maybe of the, and sometimes it's actually they believe they're loving you by telling you some of these things, but over time and accumulation of that, you do start to feel like you're not measuring up, or you're devalued, and then you then may become critical of yourself as well.
That's true. That's true. That's a good point. Authenticity, identity, discovering your values, strengths, and purpose,
Mhm.
building a sense of self that doesn't depend on external validation. Shannon, uh, a lot of times people, and particularly I always say this about women, have a lot of pressure. They have a lot of pressure because their standards of beauty, um, comparing themselves to other women or comparing themselves to a person. And so what happens is that you can become so subconscious and start beating up yourself and not thinking that you are unique. You're
Mhm.
one of a kind. But because we get compared, particularly body shape, is she pretty? Am I pretty enough?
Mhm.
Um, you know, why does this person have someone and a lot of things are superimposed on women. And what women have to realize is that you are unique.
Mhm.
We all have things that we need to work on, but you're unique. Everybody don't want the same things. Sometimes God is working on um, people because you could be good in one area and
Mhm.
not good in another area, and which is the case with most of us, is
Mhm.
that there are always going to be areas that you need to work on. Years ago, when I was acting, um, you know, that field has skinny minis, right? And it's a great thing to um, keep yourself well and healthy. But I used to get great parts, and some of they'd be like, "Wow, what is it about her? Like, she don't fit the mold."
Right.
And
But
I
people
had
want to
confidence.
see, yeah, people want to see someone who looks like them. And some of that's unrealistic. Even some of those people have a struggle maintaining that
Right.
because it's not natural.
Well,
So,
but the whole point is I'm comfortable in my skin. I
yes.
don't want to be like you. You know, I want to be healthy for me. I want
Right.
to look good for me. And also, when you have a quote unquote reputation to uphold, you certainly um, have a standard that you need to keep um, in that as well. But it shouldn't be for someone else.
Hmm.
Listen, don't touch that dial. Don't touch that dial. I'm talking with my homegirl tonight, one of my homegirls, Shannon Wright, and we're talking about the journey, because it is a journey to self worth and fulfillment. Don't touch that dial. We are going to be back in a moment with more. And listen, I want you to support the Pearl Hill Show. I want you to click and subscribe on YouTube. I also want you to purchase a copy of my book, Bruised to be Used. God has brought you through some great things. He's brought you through some trials, some situations that don't seem fair. But in the whole process, those bruises was so he can use you to bring light and love and help to someone else. Watch this clip. Consider purchasing a copy. Support my show, The Pearl Hell Show. And this is my book, Bruised to be Used. We'll be back with more.
Discover healing, purpose, and transformation with Pearl Hale's book, Bruised to be Used. You were meant to stay bruised. You were meant to be used. Purchase your copy. Discover healing, purpose, and transformation with Pearl Hale's book, Bruised, to be used. You were meant to stay bruised. You were meant to be used. Purchase your copy today.
Welcome back to the Pearl Hale Show. Listen, I want you to click and subscribe if you're on YouTube. I'm hanging out with my homegirl, Shannon Wright, and we're talking about this valuable subject, the journey to self worth and self fulfillment. God has you watching tonight or on the line, watching the Pearl Hale Show podcast to give you some golden nuggets to let you know that you are valuable. You are someone special. And you know, Shannon, so much has happened in the news. We've seen a lot of tragic stories in the news of public figures. We're not going to get into that so much, but we've seen it in the news. Is it possible? Can someone appear successful publicly while privately struggling with self worth?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's interesting that you say that, and wow, it's a loaded issue. If you really think about it, just because someone has wealth, just because someone has that particular position or status in life does not equal happiness, joy, and complete self worth. And I think that is evident by how people step on other people.
Hmm.
They lack self worth. They don't love themselves, so they hurt other people. And I've experienced it in the workplace in a greater way this last position that I had because I had been a stay at home mom for many years with my children. And the pivot during the pandemic sent me back working into a corporate America or in a company, so to speak. And I really had the chance to see just how things had shifted over that time that I wasn't in the work environment, and just realizing how the environment that you're in affects how you feel and it affects how you value yourself. So if someone's dealing with a situation at work and you're keeping up the face at work, but when you get home, you tend to let down and take evaluate from the day, decompress and realize how you feel after everything that you're going through. And then sometimes you have a bad environment at home, and I think it's amazing how many women have been in abusive relationships that are private, and then in front of everyone, they're put together. You would never know that they're going through some of these things, and in the day that it all falls apart, you start to realize, wow, no one would have ever known. And that's, in a way, that's sad, because I think people are afraid to be vulnerable sometimes in front of others. And I've found that that is when we are most brave. When we get with other women who we feel safe to let down our guard and talk and speak, you really get a chance to uncover that people are deep waters and they're going through a lot, holding up a lot. I know it takes a lot for me to hold my head up. I've been through a lot my own in my own life, and it takes discipline to think the thoughts that you know are true about yourself, about circumstances, regardless of what's going on. When the external input, as you said, if you start to look for your security from an external source, well, then your value and your worth can slip, or you could feel devalued, or you could feel like you are miserable in a situation. But once I still myself and tell myself the truth about what God says about me, about what's true about me, then it doesn't matter about the external challenges. And as you talked about the things that are going on in the world and the statements that are being made and actually not challenged. And they sit. And then therefore it becomes this mindset of others around you. And you could feel like you're wavering between these opinions of who you are. So you have to stay grounded in truth. And so for me, it's stealing my mindset and telling myself the truth about what God says about me. Everything that makes it work for me is having God as a standard. Otherwise, there's so much that is so what I should say, it's not secure, or it's a moving target, or it is certainly not stable. You know, when you really think about the circumstances that we're in right now, you have to pull from a source that is solid, that is true north, in order
Yes.
to keep your value and keep your worth. And so, yes, there are people who are look like they have it all together, but the moment you sit with them and they really trust you, will let down their guard and let you know what's really going on. I know when I've spoken and done my one woman show, and I've been vulnerable in that show and transparent, often people come up afterward and they tell me things they've never told anyone, because you've had a chance to hear someone open up their life and be transparent about struggles, challenges, things they've overcome, and then you feel empowered to also be transparent. And that's freeing. That's really where people will begin to grow in valuing themselves, is when you find that tribe of people that you feel safe to be real with, to be transparent with.
And
Um,
that I think that you said it, you hit it on the head. One has to find a tribe of people who they feel safe with, because
mhm,
oftentimes people feel alone, and some people have not discovered or do not have a confidence circle. You take being in various positions. Let's say if you are a manager or you're a
executives.
minister,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
have to be very careful in
Focus.
those
Yeah.
positions that um, someone don't use your weakness against you.
Hmm.
And it's not so much hiding. I remember hearing a popular uh, pastor was saying that when they date, it's private, because you have the public in your business, which takes it to another level, and it can cause other problems. So it's not about hiding, it's about you already are at a level of scrutiny being a public figure or image. And so if you're dating, if you're involved in a relationship and that becomes public, um,
Yeah.
before you're married or before um, you've gotten to know each other as a couple,
Hmm.
it can be overwhelming. Um, it can really be detrimental, because at the same time, you have a lot going on, and you have a lot of things to keep up with. And so, in the public side, nobody wants to look bad.
Hmm.
No,
Keeping up the facades. Just,
even the
yeah.
facades. But one of the challenges, particularly in ministry, is because it's one of those things where you're helping people,
Yeah.
is to let your hair down and say, "Listen, I need prayer. I'm having a I'm having a bad day. I'm having a hard time." But you get so used to helping others, and it's like in the word where Jesus said, being selfless and those things. And as they say back in the day, women, they didn't have support systems like we do today. They
Right.
didn't have anybody to talk to about their traumas, about what's going on
But
in
if
their
you even
household.
you think about Jesus, he had an inner circle. And so, even in ministry, people need that inner circle. They need those few people that they trust. And a dear friend of mine had a great idea years ago, and I adopted it. I loved it. It was having a front row of people. I had 10 women
Hmm.
that I had on my front row. These are women that I have long history with, and I would not make major decisions without calling at least three of them to run it by them, to pray together. And so that really made a difference for me coming through many years, was really having an inner circle. I think whether it's ministry, whether it is a corporate environment, You can't talk to just, anyone, because certain people, if they see an advantage, use it over you
Mhm.
for usurping your authority or taking your position or making you look bad or whatever the case. So it is important to choose your friends and your inner circle wisely. But even they can let you down, as we know, fall asleep
Well,
while you're
I
praying.
agree with you, but in the multitude of counselors, you get wisdom when you have, and I too, when you have a confidence circle
Hmm.
of non-yes people. And
They'll tell you the truth.
when I say non-yes people, people who will tell you the truth in love,
Right,
and people who will give you ouch moments so you can grow.
right,
Um, Oftentimes we can't grow if we don't have a circle of people because we're social beings by nature.
mhm,
You have to have somebody,
right,
people around, confidence circle, maybe a church circle. But again, the church deals with people. And so it's a beautiful thing, but you want to have a small group of people as your confidence circle.
right.
Um, you know, you have acquaintances and then friends.
And
And
frenemies.
yes,
Well,
um,
I
all at
recognize that
the same time.
they
And
are necessary, the frenemies.
everything is necessary to push you
Exactly.
to another level.
Right.
Jesus didn't get to his next destiny and the assignment that God called him to do without challenges,
Mhm.
without pain. And
Not going
it's
to the
in
cross.
recognizing pain that it pulls up layers in us by
Mhm.
getting things wrong, by sometimes saying, well, I got to see that people are pulling on me, but I'm worthy of having people help me as well. I've always had people
Yes.
who help me as well. It's not good to have people who, now you have to be careful in ministry because you're taught to be selfless, but you have to understand that you are human and everybody needs somebody. The machine will break down.
Well, even Jesus, in the example of, I think it was Jethro who told Moses to pick men and put them in charge instead of trying to take care of everyone's needs. It's important to delegate, to have discernment.
Yes.
I hope I have that story right, just off the top of my head. But anyway, yes, it's so important to delegate and not try to be Jesus to everybody. We don't have to carry the world on our shoulders. And I think selflessness, that's interesting. We have to definitely honor that with boundaries, because otherwise
Yes.
people will feel they own you and they should be able
Yes.
to call you all hours of the night, and really you're not their savior, you're not their source. And there are
And
certain
also
things that
take advantage too and use people.
right, and there are certain problems that people have that are not for a minister to solve, they are for a therapist. And I think sometimes people don't realize you need to direct them to a therapist instead of you trying to meet certain needs. Even certain people who've gone through trauma, it's so important for us not to re-traumatize ourselves trying to help them with their trauma. There are people who are trained for that, to help them process it. Sometimes people need to know the difference between what is ministry and what needs to be, it would allow them to go and have care with a professional. So
Well, don't touch that dial. We're going to be back with our last segment. We're hanging out, we're talking about self worth and fulfillment, and you are worth it. And before we take another break, I just want to pull up this next uh, slide, the path to self fulfillment. Determine what matters. Identify the values and relationships that bring genuine meaning to your life. Um, we have to recognize what's valuable to us, not what someone else try to superimpose on us as valuable.
mm,
And that's number one. Practice presence. Engage fully in each moment. Fulfillment is found in the journey, not the destination. I like that.
I like that.
And cultivate gratitude. Shift focus from what's missing to what's already abundant in your life. And that's so important. Um, Shannon, as we've been saying on tonight, don't touch that dial. We're going to be back in a moment with more, our last segment. I'm hanging out with one of my homegirls tonight, and we want you to know that you are worth love. Uh, your self worth means the world. You're somebody special. And we're going to be back in a moment with more.
Your best. So I'm asking you, I'm demanding from you, whatever it is in your life, give it your best. Not for me, not for a teacher, not for moms, not for you. Like, what you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Your best. Grind. Go all the way to graduation and be like, all right, that's one step. I'm up to the next. College, boom, I'm up to the next. Master's, boom, I'm up to the next. PhD, I'm up to the next. Anybody want to go to med school? Yeah, save my life, baby. Thank you. I want a doctor. Thank you. Your best. What does your best look like? And we haven't been able to answer that question. None of you, I would bet, can answer the question. Because we haven't asked ourselves that. We haven't given ourselves that opportunity to give our best.
Welcome back to the Pearl Hale Show. Listen, I want you to click and subscribe on YouTube. This is Transformational Speaks, and we're having a transformative conversation with one of my homegirls, Shannon Wright. Shannon, my last question of the night. Thank you so much for being with me and delving into this conversation. I want to know what challenges or experiences tested your confidence the most?
What challenges made me question my confidence the most? Was that the question?
What challenges or experiences tested your confidence the most?
Tested my confidence the most. I think the challenge that I felt I dealt with the most is when you believe you really are being others focused, caring for other people, and it's not received as enough. It is like as we spoke of before, devalued, or they're never going to see things the way you want them to if they're not trying to receive you or love you. If people don't love you, they're never going to appreciate anything that you do. And I think for me, the challenge was recognizing that this environment is unhealthy for me. My body knows before I have even processed in my head. I feel heart palpitations going to the door of this place or that place. I feel like there's a threat against my person because this person's energy is off. I'm not meant to be around this person. And I believe for me, it was identifying that that person has an issue. I'm coming from a place of love. I'm not being received. There's confusion. You never can understand exactly what I'm saying. We talk in circles. You never own up to what you're doing or how you're treating me. And I have a choice to make. Do I want to remain in this or do I want to vote with my feet and move? So I think the challenge for me was loving people in a way that it was hard to leave them because I genuinely cared, but recognizing that they don't love me the same. And while that might have, been one isolated situation, because I was around that situation the longest part of my life, I recognize that it's like a leaving home, so to speak. I gained everything I need to from this environment. I've now outgrown it, and I now recognize that I'm grateful for that person being in my life, and or those people being in my life, for the way that they carried on, because it allowed me, first of all, to rely on God. Secondly, it taught me forgiveness, and that it's okay to move on. I'm not betraying them in any way by not choosing to remain there and keep taking, And this was actually in a church environment. So
Mhm.
that's very challenging, because in the world you can accept that people are acting this way or that way, but when it's close to home, like church, or it's in your own home, it's difficult to make a decision that this is unhealthy for me, therefore I will not remain in this environment any longer. So I believe that was probably the most challenging thing for me to do, was really to leave an environment that I had been in for a very long period of time and start all over somewhere else, trusting that God is going to bring the right people in my life, or I'm going to end up in the right environment where I feel I'm able to thrive and grow and be my very best, as the video said. And I believe I found that. It was wonderful when I found that environment. Immediately I knew, this is what I've been looking for. This is the way it's supposed to feel. It's
Self-worth.
reciprocal. It's reciprocal. It's being around people who love themselves, therefore they have a capacity to love me and reciprocate and grow and actually collaborate versus competitiveness. So yes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times that we have to understand that even in church environments, you're still dealing with people. We're people. And um, sometimes it's just, again, recognizing the self worth. Sometimes when people don't line up
Hmm.
to where you're going, it will be off. The comfort, you won't feel comfortable.
Hmm.
Because, and it's not that people are bad. Sometimes it's God saying, I have so
No,
more for you.
exactly.
I have something better for you. And if you stay stuck in something that you are above, this is beneath you sometimes. Sometimes,
Mhm.
and I'm not talking in terms of nobody's better than anybody,
No.
but sometimes we have to grow up. And sometimes God give us ouch moments to grow up.
And if you really think about it, sometimes you're filling a position that you have now outgrown, and it's time for you
Yes.
to move on. And that person needs to fill in the gap. And maybe that's the missing link for them to realize their value or their worth. So it's not a bad thing. I think everything, according to what the word says, everything works together
Everything
for our
works
good.
together for your good.
For good. And so
Yep.
I needed to go and grow, because I have a broader capacity. There's certain things that I was praying for. And I believe God allows the exact right circumstances so we will move. Because
Yes.
realistically, for me to leave that environment, it would take something like what I went through, because I would stay. I'm long suffering. I love
Because
people. I'm
you're
loyal. Yeah.
yeah, because you are, and I am too. I'm a very tolerant person to a certain extent. But you have to know when it's toxic. Is
And
it
you need to know when
tolerant,
it's time to
or,
grow,
or
time to
it's
go.
toxic and it's
Exactly.
time to leave that alone?
Yes.
You can't save everybody.
No.
And some people you just have to love at a distance,
Mm-hmm.
because you are worth it, your self-worth, you
Yes.
know and because you value you, anybody who's in line with you, or anybody who's come in contact with you, you're a blessing. I'm
Mm-hmm.
blessed to be a blessing. And so a lot of times it's other people's loss, you know, when they don't want to communicate. And I want to say to somebody out there, don't put your self esteem on the line for
Exactly.
people who don't recognize your wealth.
Right.
God has people who He's assigned to help you get to your next level. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you hang around people who are not bad and who won't help you because they're not assigned to help you. And it's been weighing on your self-esteem because you're saying, wow, why haven't they helped me? Jesus is your help. God is your help. And he's calling you and saying you're loved. He loves you, that you are worth it. Your self-worth, you're valuable. And be fulfilled in this day. When people reject you, it's because God is moving you in a different direction. And Shannon, sometimes that's a hard lesson to learn, because particularly when everybody's been there, you want to be liked, you want to be loved, you want to be tolerated like you tolerate other people. Um, but a lot of times, when it comes down to your self worth, you have to make some hard decisions.
Well, it's that old adage that rejection is God's protection,
Yes.
because you when you are diminishing yourself, it is a disservice to God, because we're called
Hmm.
for great purposes. We are more than conquerors, and the scriptures clearly say that God will finish the work he began in you, and sometimes that means in a different environment. If you want to see a plant grow and it's in a pot and the roots are starting to burst out, and it's just it needs to be repotted, replanted. Like, you can't grow a tree in a flower pot. So I see it was valuable what I went through, but I also recognize that it's being willing to, as you said, give yourself some love and care, and recognize that it is an honor. It's honoring God, because he gives you your value, he gives you your worth. He says you're valuable, or he wouldn't have given his son to have a reconciled relationship with you. It really speaks volumes that that's how God values us, that he wants to be in a relationship with us. So to the person who's out there who's feeling like, I'm just not sure which way to go, it is really going inward to examine your thoughts, how you speak to yourself, what you think about, because our subconscious is what we should be training, because consciously, the things that we see every day, the news, which is, I heard a wonderful acronym, which is north, east, um, west, and south. It's the broadcast, it's the programs that are speaking to us, television telling a vision, spelling over us every day. We need to be careful what we allow in. So we need to go inward and check on ourselves with God, check on ourselves with our creator, and that's where we'll find our answers. And really taking the time to speak life over ourselves, because the Bible says there's power in the tongue. And so certain things that we say, if we come into agreement with the negative things people say about us, and we're around wrong environments, we're actually doing ourselves a disservice. So I really want to encourage others to take that time to go inward, to evaluate what's important to you, and to speak life over yourself, because we each have a purpose. We each have a light we're meant to shine. And if we're in a place that dulls that light, it is important for us. It's our responsibility to find the environment where we feel we can thrive and let our light shine. So,
Well, thank you so much. It was certainly a pleasure. Shannon Wright, singer, motivational speaker, actress. I'm going to leave you with this last quote. Our doubts are trailers and make us lose the good we often might win by fearing to attempt. Attempt to think about your self worth differently. Attempt to step out of a negative circle.
yes.
Attempt to find people who value what you bring to the table. Don't dumb yourself down. You're going to lose the good that you often might win if you don't attempt something different today.
That's
I'm
right.
your host, Pearl Hale. I'm a life transformational speaker and coach, and I'm here with Shannon Wright. And we thank you so much for joining us on the Pearl Hale Show. Thank you so much, Shannon. Good night, you all.
Thank you.
And Have a blessed evening. Take care. Mwah.
Thank you, love.
You too. Take care.
Ooh, passion, spiritual, inside, yeah.